It's that time again. It's that time again for the lady that knows how to bring you the information from the community. It's GA for Justice with your community activist, Miss Georgia Allen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm here with you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I tell you, a lot has been going on this last few weeks. I'm like,
Yeah.
my goodness, it's happening so fast we can't keep up. I see the messages from you and the messages from Venus and the
Uh,
messages here and messages. I'm like, what in the world?
yeah.
All kinds of stuff going on down here in Virginia Beach.
Hello.
So we got to kind of investigate some of this stuff that's going on because things aren't as nice and wonderful as some people would have us to believe.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, with that being said, I am Georgia F. Allen, and this is GA for Justice, and we come to you every Thursday at 12 o'clock noon, bringing you a little bit of information. And I always like to say that I try to have a conversation for our listening audience, a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, as well as a conversation for transformation. Because if we're not changing anything, if we're not transforming anything, and everything still remains the same, why are we here?
Hello.
Why are we here? And so, with that being said, we always want to give you props, Henderson. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very much for opening up the airwaves. Because if it were not for you, information would not trickle down into our community. Of course, with a radio show like this allows people to send it out to friends and relatives and others and push it down to the various platforms so that other people can hear the information that we try to bring to them to bring about positive changes in our community. And if there's anybody that needs some positive changes in their community, that would be us.
Yeah.
So this week, each week I try to bring a little twist or what have you. But the month of March, I consider the third principle of Kwanzaa. I start the year off talking about our Kwanzaa principles. And of course, in January, we talked about Umoja. We talked about unity and how important it is for us to unite as a community, because united, we bargain, but divided, we definitely will be begging. So we can choose which one do we want to do. Do we want to unite and bargain, or do you want to divide and be begging for the rest of your life? I choose to unite. The second principle, of course, in February was Kuji Chagalia, or self-determination. And if there has ever been a group of people in the history of mankind that was self-determined, it was us. Because we didn't get a silver spoon. We didn't get an inheritance from anybody. They didn't give us free land. This country did not give us those things that they were supposed to give us, like the 40 acres and a mule. That
Hello.
did not happen. So everything that we built it with our own hands and with our own being. And so we are self-determined. So if anybody come to you and say, oh, Black folks are lazy, oh, don't don't believe the noise, okay? Because that's not true. We are a self-determined people. Do we ask for anything? Absolutely. Because most of what we had in the beginning was taken from us, so we want it back.
Hello.
And that's self-determination. We want it back, okay? And now it brings us to our third principle, which is UJIMAA or UJIMAA. UJIMAA is the one that's coming up next. UJIMAA is now. UJIMAA is collective work and responsibility. And that is to build and maintain our community together and to make our community problems our problems, solve them together, as a unit. This is a principle that we need to focus on a little bit more because we, like I said, we are self-determined people, but we do a lot of that individually. We can be united, but sometimes we do that individually. But when it comes to collective work and responsibility to build up things for ourselves in concert with one another, this is critically important. The reason why we had so much back in the day, our own banks, our own insurance companies, our own bus companies, our own taxi companies, restaurants, barbershops, beauty salons, everything that we needed to contain ourselves was sitting right in our community. And we had that because we were all together and we were there together in unity. And that's what made us so strong. So to all of you young people who may be listening today, to those of you who may not be as young as they used to be, like myself, we need to get back to the UJIMAA principle, the collective work and responsibility. We just had an election on Tuesday, and you will not believe how many people did not know there was an election on Tuesday.
Wow.
You will not believe how many people did not know that all of the precincts were open on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Even though there were announcements that went out to let people know that there was early voting up until Saturday, which was March the 2nd, people were still asking the question about voting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going to have to get better at getting that information out to our community to help them to know what is taking place, because everybody is not politically savvy, and don't expect them all to be, because people have their own issues that they're dealing with, and they're working 2 and 3 jobs, and they have families that they're raising, and all of these various things are going on. And at one point in time, I used to get frustrated because I would be like, what in the world? All these things are going on in my life too, but I have time to do this or that or the third. But keep in mind, everybody is not the same. So therefore, we got to learn how to show a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
A little bit of grace. And it does get a little challenging sometimes to try to show people grace when you feel like they don't seem to be putting forth the effort. But we also have to call on all of our different groups and organizations and remind them to also make sure that they share from whatever platform they have. We have groups and organizations that may have a platform that offer them an opportunity to have a radio show similar to myself, and they come on. I know we have people within in the organization of NAACP who come on the radio show 3 days a week. And we need to make sure that those people are using that platform to remind people to go to the polls and vote. Because although we had the primaries for the presidential election on on Tuesday of this week, we now in June, we have another primary election for the congressional seats. So we need people to know about that. We need to make sure we get that information out. We need to be sharing that information on a regular basis, because if we don't, then we're going to bump up to a similar situation that we bumped into when it was time for the presidential primary elections. And people were saying, well, I didn't know it was time to vote again. And white people live in the Commonwealth of Virginia and don't know it is always time to vote, because we vote all the time.
Hello.
We voted in January. We had a month off in February. We then voted again in March, and we'll be voting again in June, and then voting again in November. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we are a state that votes all the time. So people should always be keeping their eyes and ears pinned and perked up to hear about when is the next election, because there is always an election.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, it is also Women History Month. We spent time talking about Black history last month, and we spent a lot of time talking about Joe Madison because he was a phenomenal gentleman that just was willing to put his life on the line for us. And so this month, we're going to talk a little bit about Women History Month. And I've decided to talk about two people this month. Two people today. I'm going to be talking about different ones each week. But today, I'm going to talk about some artists, because a lot of times there are people out here that we don't necessarily pay homage to. We tend to talk about all of the same people each and every time. You may hear Ella Fitzgerald name, or you may hear Aretha Franklin name, or you may hear some of the people who are in the political arena, people like Shirley Chisholm or Barbara Jordan, and you hear their names. But a lot of times you don't hear some of these other people. They almost seem like they're obscure, but they did work, and they opened up doors. And so today I am going to tell you a little bit about Phyllis Wheatley. Phyllis Wheatley does not get a lot of press like a Maya Angelou. She does not get that same type of press that a Maya Angelou may get. But Phyllis Wheatley was a young lady who was born into slavery. Phyllis was born May the 8th, 1753. Now, let me tell you how long ago that was. I was born in 1953, okay?
Phyllis.
So she was born 200 years before I was born. And so that's why it was kind of special. When I looked, I was like, she was born in May. I was born in June. And she was born 200 years before me. She was born in West Africa. Of course, she ultimately passed away December the 5th, 1784. She was born in West Africa, but she died here in America in Boston, Massachusetts, at the tender age of 31 years old. 31 years old. Now, Phyllis was an American author. She was considered to be the very first African American author of a published book of poetry. Born in West Africa and kidnapped and brought to North America when she was around the age of 7 or 8 years of age, she was sold to the Wheatley family in Boston. She learned to read and write and through her oppressors who encouraged her, because she had a great talent to write poetry. So she learned to read and write at a very early age. In 1773, while on a trip to London with the Wheatley's son, who was seeking publication for her work, Phyllis met prominent people who became her patron. The publication of her poems on various subjects, to include religion, moral, was done on September the 1st, 1773, which brought her fame both in England and the American colonies. Prominent figures praised her work. That's how good she was, okay? That's how good we are. Wheatley was emancipated by the Wheatleys, Phyllis Wheatley was emancipated by her oppressors, the Wheatleys, shortly after her publication of her book of poems. Now, a lot of times we look at being in enslaved situation, but there was something about Phyllis going to this particular family. They had money, they had compassion, they showed grace, and they showed mercy. Phyllis, as a young child, was tutored by the Wheatley's family daughter Mary and their son Nathaniel. The father, John Wheatley, could afford to send Phyllis and provide for her an unprecedented education. not only for an enslaved person, but it was really very unusual for a woman of any race at this time to get this type of education. So, again, she happened to be placed with this family or purchased by this particular family, which I found very fascinating because you hear all the time about some of the horrific things that take place when people were enslaved here in America. But by the age of 12, Phyllis was reading Greek and Latin classics in their original languages, as well as the difficult passages of the Bible. At age 14, Phyllis wrote her first poem to the University of Cambridge, and in the little brackets, they say Harvard in New England. So this young lady, under all of these extreme circumstances, and I wanted to read about her and share this for Women's History Month because we have so many people fussing and complaining and whining and crying about everything. And here she is in bondage, basically, from a group of people who are told that they are not allowed normally to read or write. Not only does she learn how to read and write, but she takes it to a next level. And I say that to any of the people who are listening out here is know your brilliance because you are. Know it, capture it, build upon it, and don't sit here and because things don't seem so great that you just sit around and you whine and complain and decide that you're not going to move any further down the road. This lady was phenomenal. But the sad part, as I shared earlier, is she was born in 1753, but died in 1784. She was only 31 years of age. 31 years of age. She got married and gave birth to, it's of course, when it's a situation like this, they can't always tell you 100% for sure, but they said between 3 and 4 children, all of who died at a very young age while they were small children. So here's this woman and her husband, and she gives birth to 4 children, and they all die very young. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the tragedy of that? And she continued to write, except for when she had her last child. She died, and then her child died after her. So they both died on the same day, December the 5th, 1784. But it was amazing because she went back to Europe again. She continued to do as much work as she could, publishing and all. But unfortunately, she did not have a very, very long life simply because of the situation she was under. Because when she went back to England, she got pneumonia. And so that ultimately led to her death. The other sad part about Phyllis, she was, even though she was emancipated by the people that bought her in the first place, she and her husband, Mr. John Peters, never made a lot of money. He was a poor grocer. But of course, during that period of time, trying to sell your books and your writings to earn enough income to live a well-to-do life was not always that easy. And so, therefore, she died in poverty, and he died in obscurity and poverty as well. But she left behind great poems. And the other thing about her, she had a style and a structure, and she influenced poetry for many years to come. And this is one of the things that was written about her. Wheatley believed that the power of poetry was immeasurable. John C. Shields, noting that her poetry did not simply reflect the literature she read, but was based on her personal ideas and beliefs. So he writes, Whitley had more in mind than simple conformity. So those of you who are listening, stop conforming to anything and everything. It will be shown later that her allusions to the sun god and to the goddess of the morn, always appearing as they do here in close association with her quest for poetic inspiration, are of central importance to her. So she was a person who not only was inspired by life itself, by the universe itself, but she seek to inspire others. And so that is also part of the reason why I liked her, because we don't talk about Phyllis Wheatley. We've heard of her. Almost anybody Black can tell you, oh yeah, I've heard of Phyllis Wheatley. She wrote poems. But outside of that, people don't share a lot about her, and but she was very good at writing. She had a solid foundation, given the fact that she came out of slavery. She still had a solid foundation, and she stayed focused on what was important. And so that again is part of the reason why I liked her a lot. And I thought that I would share a little bit about Phyllis Whitley with my listening audience today. And I would suggest that you go back and read some of her works. Two of the quotes that I like that came from her works. One is, and of course, it's considered broken English, in the way that we spoke back during enslavement. But she said, "Thou didst, didst, in strains of eloquence refined." And she spells refined, REFIN apostrophe D. "Inflame the soul and captivate the mind." And that's what she did with her writing. She inflamed your soul. She gave you works that was just phenomenal works that she did. And what did she do? She inflamed the mind. So what did she do? She opened up the mind, because guess what? We have gotten to the point that our minds are closed, and we're not willing to open up our minds in the manner that was once done by our people and our forefathers and stuff. And that quote, I just loved it. And I'm going to repeat it. "Thou didst in strains of eloquence refined, inflame the soul, your spirit, the being who you are, and captivate the mind." And I absolutely love that quote. I read numerous quotes by her, but there was just something powerful about that quote that I said people need to hear that, because we have slogans and sound bites that are not worth a dime. But this is power and strength, because she understood how important it is to open up the minds of our young people, to open up our minds of our elders, to open up our minds and to captivate that mind so that it is used for something other than nonsense. And so I love that quote. But the other quote that I liked by her was, "Wisdom is higher than a fool can reach." Shall I repeat that? Wisdom is higher than a fool can reach. And if you know anything about what is taking place throughout our society today, there's not a whole lot of wisdom being shown in our community, in our governments, in a in our education system. But there's a lot of foolishness going on, and they're not reaching up to wisdom. And so again, I wanted to share Phyllis Whitley with you guys. I want you to go back and just read some of the stuff that she has written over the years, and take it in, and just kind of relish it, and then read it to our children, because part of what has been taking place is we stop reading. We stop reading, and we need to start reading again, and we need to start having book clubs again, and we need to start sharing again, and then we need to question and ask questions again. And we can do that through collective work and responsibility. It is up to us to join together in unity, in community. It's our responsibility to do this, to work together, to build together, to live together, to grow together. And we should be growing immeasurably if we want to have a better outcome. So I trust that my listening audience enjoyed me sharing a little bit about Phyllis Whitley. There is much, much more that I could share, but I am going to share a second person. I'm going to go ahead and give you the person's name. It is Denise Graves, and it's Denyce, and she is an opera singer. And so while you're looking up Denise Graves, and I should have done this in advance, so I do apologize. While he's looking up Denise Graves, I am going to tell you a few announcements. Okay. On Monday, March the 11th at March 11, 2024 at 7 p.m., the NAACP will have its general membership meeting, and that meeting will be held at the Hive on the corner of Independence Boulevard and Columbus Street. And for persons who don't know where that is across the street from Apex. Apex, I think, is like a game room, a gaming area, and a fun place to be for those of you who have young children and have gone to Apex. I don't think I've been there yet.
It's a nice place.
I don't think I still haven't been there, but we definitely would love to see you at our meeting on Monday night, where we can discuss some of the issues that's taking place in our community, especially the civil rights issues, and an opportunity for you to also ask questions. Then on Tuesday, there are two events going on. Tuesday, March the 12th, from 6:30 to 8:30 at Rehoboth Baptist Church. There is currently been implemented by Yale University. A nationwide study will be done to study the effects and best efforts to treat high blood pressure. And why is this important for our community? Because many of us suffer from high blood pressure. And so they're going to take a look at this, and not only the high blood pressure, but any of the related illnesses that are affecting the African American community. Now, this will be your first opportunity to participate. So if you're interested in coming out and being a part of this on-site screening and monitoring, it is going to be on Tuesday, March 12th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Now, if you're not able to make it to that screening, there will be future information coming forward for persons who may want to participate. And this is simply an avenue for us to understand the causes, the effects, and any other underlying effects of persons having high blood pressure. And then the third event that is taking place is about me. On Tuesday, March 12th, also, the school board will be meeting, and you can come out and speak in support of my application to serve on the school board in district number 4. And that generally starts around 6 p.m., but you will have to contact them by noon on Tuesday. I would recommend that everybody, if they want to speak, contact them on Monday to inform the school board that you would like to speak. And they'll ask you, and why would you like to speak? And you can say, I want to speak with regards to the opening on the school board. And you make sure that they know that is why you want to speak. They may or may not ask you if you're there to support anyone in particular. If they ask you that, you can go ahead and give them my name, Georgia Allen. But again, Tuesday, March 12th, there will be a school board meeting. You can come out, you can speak and give your support. You can also send letters, and these letters would go to the Virginia Beach School Board clerk, and you can do that as well, and everything, because Tuesday will be an open session where people are able to speak and say who they would like to see serve in that seat on school board. And that seat is located in District 4, which is the Bayside area. If you're familiar with communities or neighborhoods such as Limbrook Landing, or you're familiar with Aragona, or you're familiar with Campus East, Lake Edward, J Gardens, Burton Station, all of those neighborhoods are in the District 4 area, even down to the town center. The town center, if you live in the condos or whatever, or anything down at the town center, that is also in District 4. Schools that are in District 4, schools like Pembroke Elementary, Bayside Middle, Bayside 6th grade, Diamond Springs, Betty F. Williams, Newtown Elementary, Renaissance Center. So if you have children that are in any of those schools, that district is, those schools are in district number 4. And so those are the schools, the principals, the persons who are in any of the positions are the people that I will be working on behalf of. In addition, that I would be voting on anything that takes place in the city of Virginia Beach with regards to the school system. It is not city council, it is the school system. So we want to make sure that people understand the difference between their school board member and their city council member. So I always like to try to give people a little bit of education when I'm making announcements about what is going on in our city. But it is an opportunity for you to voice your opinion, voice your support, and hopefully come the end of this month, I will be the newest member on our school board, and I will be able to address the issues and the concerns of the community. Again, it is a district that has about 7 schools in the district. Again, we're looking at Newtown Elementary, we're looking at Betty F. Williams Elementary, Diamond Springs Elementary, Pembroke Elementary, Bayside Middle, Bayside 6th grade, and the Renaissance Center. Those are all schools in district number 4. And you say, well, why do you want to go on the school board? Because hopefully it will allow me to be able to make an impact in terms of some of these areas where we find that our young people are being disenfranchised. There would be an opportunity for me to speak up and address some of the things that are taking place, especially in the school system, where we don't want it to always be punitive. We want it to sometimes be restorative. We want to work in a manner where we're changing outcomes for the better. And so that is why I have chosen to put my name in the hat, and we will see what happens. But it's my goal to serve my community. I've been doing it for years. just in a different manner. That's all. Okay. With that being said, our next person that I want to talk about, women for Women History Month, Denise Graves, Denyce. Yes. Denise Graves was born March 7, 1964, and is an American mezzo soprano opera singer. Now, Denise is not singing as much as she used to. She does a lot of things in the opera arena, from putting on shows and things of that nature as well. Now, her early life. Graves was born on March 7, 1964, in Washington, D.C., to Charles Grave and Dorothy Middleton Graves, now Kenner. She is the middle of three children and was raised by her mom on Galveston Street in Southwest in the Bellevue section of Washington, D.C. She graduated from Duke Ellington School of Arts in 1981. Graves studied voice at Oberlin Conservatory of Music and the New England Conservatory with Helen Hodam, Hodam. She worked at the Wolf Trap Opera Company, which provides further training and experience for young singers who are between their academic training and full-time professional careers. Soon after, she was invited by David Gockley to participate in the Houston Opera Studio from 1988 to 1990, where she studied with Elena Nicolodi, and that is spelled Nikoladi, Nicolodi. Now, Denise, so I'm going to have to do full disclosure. Denise is not my niece, but she calls me auntie because my family and her family are connected. My blood niece is actually her first cousin, and so everybody inherits me as their auntie for some reason. I don't know why, but they all somehow decide that I'm auntie to everybody. But Denise, I've known her since she was a child. When she was, I think when I first met her, she was around 12 or 13 years old, and always has had a wonderful voice and just loves singing. Now, her career, she made her career debut at the Metropolitan Opera in 1995. Remember, we couldn't sing at the Metropolitan Opera back in the day. And she has appeared at many other opera houses. Though her repertoire is extensive, her signature parts are the title roles in Carmen and Samson et Delilah. And the reason why I did the et is because it's spelled Samsonet, and Delilah is spelled Dalila. So it's done in the native tongue writing. On January 20th, 2005, she sang the patriotic song American Anthem during the 55th presidential inauguration between the swearing-in ceremonies of Vice President Dick Cheney and President George W. Bush for their second terms in office. Graves sang America the Beautiful and the Lord's Prayer at the Washington National Cathedral during a memorial service for the victims of 9/11 on September the 14th, 2001. Which was attended by President Bush, members of Congress, other politicians, and representatives of foreign governments. Denise, in 2003, performed in front of a live audience at the Mann Center for the Performing Arts in Philadelphia for a television special called Denise Graves, Breaking the Rules. In 2005, she hosted the radio show Voce de Donna, which is Voice of a Lady. I think that's Italian, on Vox, the vocal classical music channel of XM satellite radio, on which she interviewed various opera singers. Graves often was heard on the Tony Cornish show radio program with her rendition of the mailbag theme. She performed the opera Wither with Andrea Bocelli for the Michigan Opera Theater, the first opera broadcast on the internet in its entirety in 1999. She is currently an industry panelist on American Idol Underground. On January 2nd, 2007, and this needs to be updated, Graves performed the Lord's Prayer at the state funeral of for Gerald Ford at the Washington National Cathedral. Graves sang the Star Spangled Banner as part of the pre-game ceremonies inaugurating Nationals Park. And National Park, if you don't know, that is the park in Washington, D.C. On April 12, 2009, Graves performed a tribute concert to Marian Anderson at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., organized by the Abraham Lincoln Bicentennial Commission. In May 2010, Graves performed a concert with tenor Lawrence Brownlee in the United States Supreme Court building for the Supreme Court justices. On the evening of September 11, 2011, Graves performed at the Concert for Hope at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the September 11, 2001 attacks. That same year, she appeared as a Pennington Great Performers Series artist with the Baton Rouge Symphony Orchestra. Denise is currently on the voice faculty at the Peabody Conservatory of Music in Baltimore, Maryland. Denise is married to, hold on one second, Robert Montgomery, and they have one child, which is Ella, and Denise, who loved Ella Fitzgerald, named her daughter after Ella Fitzgerald. And so they have two homes, one in New York and then one in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Okay. So a little bit more about Denise. Again, Denise is doing a lot of shows now. She continues to work in the as an artist today. She stepped back a little bit simply because as many times we find that artists tend to lose their voices as time goes on, and especially when you're singing at that particular level. Some of the other things about Denise, on June 15, 2013, Graves sang in the world premiere of Terence Blanchard's and Michael Kristoff boxing opera, Champion with the Opera Theater of St. Louis. In 2014, a recording of We Shall Overcome, arranged by composer Nolan Williams Jr. and featuring Graves, was among several works of art, including the poem A Brave and Startling Truth by Maya Angelou, sent to space on the first test flight of the spacecraft Orion. On September 25, 2020, Graves sang at the U.S. Capitol as her friend Ruth Bader Ginsburg was lining stage. Ginsburg was a devoted fan of opera. On November 22nd, 2022, she sang the role of Sally in the stage premiere of Kevin Putt's opera, The Hours of the Metropolitan Opera. The performance of December 10th was videocast as part of the Metropolitan Opera Live in High Definition series. She has received a number of recognitions. She was honored in 2017 by the Washington Performing Arts with the Ambassador of the Arts Award. And in 2019, Graves received the Golden Plate Award of the American Academy of Achievement, presented by Awards Council member Dr. Ben Carson. So, all righty. So I kind of wanted to share that because, one, she's a local person. She's out of Washington, D.C. She grew up right here locally. in the tri-state area. She's almost like a family member, but she probably doesn't get the same type of notoriety that maybe a Marian Anderson may have received. But she has sang here locally on a number of occasions. Um, and growing up in inner city is not an easy task a lot of times. It can be extremely challenging. You can have many obstacles in your way. But she had a strong family and she continued to fight and work hard. Again, here we go again, self determination. So she worked day and night to hone her talents. She worked day and night uh, to perform to the top of her level. And so I share that because it's important that our young people see different types of opportunities, because we have a lot of times we tend to focus on very few things that our young people can do. A lot of times we focus simply on what sport they can play. We focus on whether or not they're going to be an actor or actress, or whether or not they're going to be in the music industry, but from a standpoint of mostly um, R&B, rap, and others. Some gospel, not too much jazz, but a lot of times it's a lot of the rap artists that we tend to focus on. And I wanted to focus on these two particular women because I wanted our young people to see options. Collective work and responsibility. It is our responsibility to present to our young people options. And so that's why I chose Miss Phyllis Wheatley and Miss Denise Graves, because I really want our young people, and I want you guys who are listening to me today, because this is not my typical show. Usually I'm up here, I'm in a fight. I'm talking about, all the challenges that we have. And yes, we still have challenges and everything, but we also have opportunities. And I wanted the collective work and responsibility to be about us taking responsibility, but also working in concert with one another, with those who are in our community. We may have a Denise Graves right here in the city of Virginia Beach in our school system that may not have that extra push. And so hopefully by my serving on school board, that I'll be able to identify persons are being overlooked, maybe are being dismissed, um, maybe are being placed in the wrong environment. And so I'm hoping that today's message that I give today with regards to Kwanzaa principles, Kwanzaa can be used all year long, that we can begin to identify some of our young people. One of the other things that I want to share, because in the NAACP, we have what we call the AXO program. And the AXO program is always looking for that opera singer. They're always looking for that classical musician. They're always looking for someone who has other talents that we don't tend to talk about a lot. The talents in the sciences, the talents in the arts, the talents in engineering. We don't necessarily talk about those as much as we do when it comes to things like playing football or basketball or playing baseball. And now more and more we hear more about soccer and hockey and tennis and golf. We're hearing more and more about that. And we want to make sure that our children are well-rounded and that they not only play sports, but let them play a number of things. Let them play sports, but also let them play an instrument. There is nothing wrong with our children being able to play sports and also being able to play the saxophone or the trombone or the horns or the drums. And so we want to make sure that they are well rounded. And that comes from collective work. That's coming from us coming together and working together and to build and maintain a better community together. That's what that comes from. That comes from digging deep. And that comes from that message that we received from Phyllis Wheatley, when she said, wisdom is higher than a fool can reach. So we need to be reaching higher, because if we're not reaching higher, then Phyllis is telling us we're not reaching higher, because wisdom is above the fool. And so I want us to take these two ladies, go back and dig deep and look at them and what they have been able to achieve and how they've been able to achieve what they have been able to achieve, so that we can share this with our children. Because when I was younger, I heard a lot about many Black men and women through history. I heard about the George Washington Carvers. I heard about the Booker T. Washingtons. I heard about the Carter G. Woodson. And then I heard about the Ida B. Wells. And I heard about the Madam C.J. Walker. I didn't hear about Maggie Lena Walker until I was an adult, but I did hear about Madam C.J. Walker. And so, and the Sojourner Truth and the Harriet Tubmans. And today we need to reinstitute that in our community, where we are sharing about our people in our history, those who are living as well as those who are our ancestors. And if you notice, I was very particular. I shared with you one of our ancestors who was creative and who was in the art, who was an artist. She wrote poems. But I also shared with you a living legend, someone who is here right now. And if you get a chance to go and see any of the shows that Denise Graves produces, take your children and go. I saw her perform here in Hampton Roads years ago. Magnificent, absolutely magnificent. And I'm not saying that because I feel like she's a part of my family. I'm saying that because it's true. Okay. I'm saying it because it is true. Henderson, do you have anything for us today?
No, I was just, engaged in listening to your conversation about this wonderful young lady. Uh, I just wanted to even play a little sample of her music.
Awesome.
That's
Awesome. That is wonderful.
Yep, that's about all I better do.
Yeah, because we might have to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah, one way to pay. One
And
way
I
or
don't know
another.
how many languages she sings in now. And that's the one thing about music. Music is universal.
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing about music is you can sing in all the different languages, and it's amazing. Um, I think I shared with the audience before. I lived overseas, and I joined a local choir in Belgium, and I learned how to sing Dutch. I learned how to sing French,
Oh,
Italian, and other languages. Because once you start singing music, you sing notes, so you don't worry about um, whether or not you can speak the language. You can sing the language. That's why when you hear American music all over the country, you hear people with from every tongue. They can sing American music. It doesn't matter. You can all sing it.
Mm.
But anyway, I think we're coming up close to the closing of the show. So I'm going to do some final comments and just remind people of the upcoming events that are coming up. Uh, Again, on March the 11th, that is the NAACP general membership meeting at 7 p.m. It's held at the Hive. The Hive is located on the corner of Independence Boulevard and Columbus Street, right across from the Apex. So if you're not doing anything on Monday night, please come out and join us. We would love to have you. And then on Tuesday, March the 12th, from 6:30 to 8:30, Rehoboth Baptist Church is hosting this, the host church, and they're having a nationwide study will be done in conjunction with Yale University to study the effects and the best efforts to treat high blood pressure and related illnesses in the African American community. Now, this will be your first opportunity to participate, but they will be hosting this again. Now, not necessarily at the same church, but it could be at another church or something. Also, Centera will be on site for screening and monitoring. Okay. So you want to take advantage of these opportunities that are made available to you with regards to your health. It is critically important that we take advantage of these opportunities. And then the final announcement, of course, is Tuesday, March the 12th, the school board meeting. We're asking people to come out in support of my appointment to the school board. And those of you who are comfortable, you can feel free to speak at this event. And basically, I'm encouraging people to call in on Monday, the 11th, to get your name on the list of a speaker. But those of you who are not speaking, I'm asking you to come out, bring your friends and your relatives. And when it's time to stand, for those who are in support of my appointment, we're asking that you all will stand up and let people know that you're in the house, because that is so important that the school board know that the community is supporting the candidate. Because over and over again, we find a lot of people who are in those positions, but we can't necessarily say that is a person that the community would have selected. So, again, today's conversation is UJIMAA, which is collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together and make our community problems our problems and to solve them together. That is critically important. So, with that being said, thank you so much for listening today. Look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same station. GA for Justice. Again, I am Georgia Allen, your host for the day.
Yeah, and don't forget to share this with other people on your social media platform, and even text them too. Once again, this is GA for Justice with your community activist, the one and only Miss Georgia Allen. Until next Thursday from 12 to 1 on WVDM. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.